Hello, this is going to be a video tutorial on the assignment for Unit 3, Activity 1. And so this is our first assignment in the media unit. And so it's going to ask you to record your own media consumption, what you watch and listen to and read, or pardon me, how much you watch, listen to, and read. And then it's going to ask you to answer some questions based on that. And so if we take a look, it'll say step 1 and step 2. So you have to follow both steps in order to complete the assignment. And so it says download the media consumption log. And if you click and download, it'll look like this. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pay attention for the next 24 hours. So after you have downloaded the media consumption log for the next day, and so for 24 hours, so if you want, you can, from the moment you get up to the moment you sleep, you won't be watching media when you're sleeping. So, but for one full day, pay attention to how much time you spend using each type of media. And then after that 24 hours is up, after that day is up, record the amount of time you spent using each type of media and calculate the total amount of time you spent with media in the bottom column. And so what you would do is you would fill in here how many hours and minutes you spent reading print. So that would be novels, short stories, poetry, newspapers, magazines. So anything that you read, that you held in your hands and read as in print, you would document how much time you spent doing that during the day. How much time did you spend watching TV or movies, and put that in. How much time did you spend listening to the radio or listening to music? How much time did you spend talking on the phone? How much time did you spend texting, emailing, or using social media? And I think this one's going to be popular. And you'd write the amount of time in here. And then how much time did you spend using websites? And this would be for non-social media websites. So you don't have to count the time you spent on Facebook twice. Just put that in for social media, and then for any other types of websites that wouldn't be social media, whether they be news websites or websites you go to learn things, or websites that you spend doing schoolwork on, for example. The amount of time that you spent on those websites you would put in here. And then playing computer games or any sort of games that you would play on a computer or PlayStation or anything like that, and you would put that in here. And there are some empty columns here, and so if there's something that I've forgotten here, some other type of media that you think you use that isn't mentioned here, you can write it in here, and you can write the amount of time you spent doing that. Okay. If you don't spend any time, for example, if you don't watch TV or movies the entire day, then just put 0 in for the time spent. Okay. And then once you've filled in the column here, go down to the bottom and it says total hours of media consumption, and just add up the hours and minutes and write in the hours and minutes, the total number that you spent consuming media for that day. If you remember from the lesson, the average Canadian spends 9 hours and 50 minutes on using some form of media. So I'd be curious to know if your media consumption is more or less than the average Canadian. And there is no right or wrong. There is no good or bad. It's just we're just trying to document how many hours we spend and how many hours and minutes we spend consuming media. Once you're done that, then there's going to be some questions to answer. So step 2 says, after completing the media consumption log, answer the following questions on the same document below the chart using complete sentences, and support your answers with specific details and examples. And so below this chart, so just go down, go down to the next page here, and then you can just write media consumption log questions, and then you can just answer the questions here, right? So I would like the questions on the same page, or in the same document, a different page, but in the same document as your chart. Okay, and so those questions will look like this. It will say, number 1, do you think the results of your media consumption log show a typical day for you? Does your use of media stay the same each day, or does it change depending on the day? So when you look at what you wrote down on the chart, is that a normal day for you? Did you watch more or less TV than you usually do? Did you spend more or less time with your texting and emailing than you normally do? I'm just curious to know whether that's a typical day for you, and explain why or why not. Number two, which media activity, watching TV, reading, social media, did you spend the most time on? So whichever one you have the highest amount of hours and minutes here, whichever one you spent the most time on, I'd like you to point that out and explain why. Why do you think you use that type of media more than any other? Okay. And remember, give specific examples and details. You can use examples and details from your own life to explain. Okay. And then number three, did any of your results surprise you? If so, explain why. If none of the statistics surprised you, explain why. So you might do this chart and you might say, wow, I had no idea that I spent that much time watching television, or that I spent that much time using the internet. I don't think we spend most of our days actually counting and paying attention to how much time we're spending with media. So I'd like to know if you were surprised by the results at all, and explain why or why not. And then lastly, and this is the question that's worth the most marks and is the one that you want to put the most detail in. It says, reflect on how media impacts your life. So once you've kind of considered what you're spending your time doing with media each day, I'd like you to think about, what do you think are the positive and negative impacts that you think media has on your life? And I'd like you to give me specific examples to support your points. And I'd like you to try to look at both. Maybe you think that media has a very positive impact on your life, and that's great. Explain the reasons why and give me examples. But I'd like you to tell me at least one negative. I'd like you to try to look at both the positives and the negatives. And you might be the opposite. You might think that, oh, media is having a very bad impact on my life, and you might give me a lot of negatives. But I'd like you to still at least give me one positive. So I'd like you to look at both sides. We're going to talk more in this unit in activities 2 and 3 and 4 about the positives and negatives of media, and how we can maybe pay more attention to them when in our regular everyday lives. So once you're done with the media consumption log and you've answered the questions, again, all on one document, just do the chart here and then the questions on the next page. You can just go up to the Dropbox and submit it as usual. If you have any questions, please let me know.